We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. I used to do this thing back in the beginning of my career, 92, 93, 94, 95, when I went from the almost famous music critic guy to being the sports radio nasty Nestor guy of the early 90s. There was no Ravens around at all. And I would call around to every rock star I knew, and we called it, based on the MTV thing, we called it our Rock and Jock special. And we did it all in one day. We aligned things. We're like Meatloaf and Geddy Lee, and just all of these rock stars would call in and talk baseball because everyone loved baseball. So I'm going to assume this is a little bit of a rock and jock, but it really is just a pleasure to welcome Rik Emmett of the great, great band Triumph, and incredible career even since then, playing all sorts of beautiful instruments and beautiful sounds and teaching the children well. He is now up in Canada, where some would say folks are even safer than they are here these days. And he's playing his guitar, and he's released a new. Rik, I don't know what to call this. Is it a book? Is it an album? Is it an LP? Is it an audio podcast? I've listened to the beautiful sounds, but I know this. It is 10 Telecaster tales with you. It's not a baseball book like Getty, but you are here to talk about some baseball as well as some rock and roll and some history. It's great to have you back on, and I see that you're active and you're out playing gigs again. Look at you.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a crazy thing, and yes, what do we call it? It's a book and a bunch of songs and record, and first time I ever did downloading on a big way, and first time I ever did streaming in a big way. So it's been an interesting sort of learning curve, and a change in my career. But I hear you're coming to our town for the season opener.
I am. And let's do a little baseball, and then we're going to get into this because I want to talk.
Wait, I'm going to ask
you.
You
know what a big fan of yours I am, so I can really geek out on Triumph stuff, but I'm really not even that guy. I'm more like the here and the now of like baseball, music, what's going on. You beating cancer. I mean, we got things to talk about, but it is baseball season, though, right? I mean, right?
It is. And I had no idea. Well, I mean, obviously from your style, I can tell you're a radio guy from way back when. But this whole nasty Nestor thing, I didn't know about that.
So, there was Storm and Norman there back in the 90s and on the radio. You see, you're shaking, because you're a baseball guy. My friend who was an artist, kids nicknamed me Nasty Nestor, like Uncle Nestor. I lost a baseball bet, and I was sending them to bed early because I had a date, and I was single. This is the late 1980s. They started calling me Nasty Nestor when I went on the radio. My name's Nestor. You know how weird that is? Like, and what it rhymes with? So I was just trying to come up with something fun. Janet Jackson had, nasty, nasty boys, don't right? So
okay.
I just, that's it. There's the whole story in 30 seconds, Rik Emmett.
There it is. Beautiful thing. Well, yeah, great. So what do you want to talk about?
Baseball.
So
here it's baseball and music, and this is very important. I'm taking Luke Jones north of the border. I don't think he's ever been to Canada. I'm taking him Niagara Falls. He's Mr. Baseball and all that. And I tried to teach him the OK Blue Jays song and teach him the what do you want? Let's play ball, okay. And I said, that's my memories of Blue Jays games. And I was there when Carter hit the home run and the city caught on fire in 92, 93. But I remember, I think of the Blue Jays and I think of that hokey song that they did in the seventh inning stretch because music makes the world go around, Rik Emmett. You know this.
Well, they say, sure. Gravity might have something to do with that. Anyhow, yeah. So, and your Orioles, I've liked that team for about 3 or 4 years now. The influx of talent that has now sort of they're full blown major leaguers. So I like your chances. The Jays, I'm not sure about, but it'll be interesting. There'll be a rivalry there that exists, obviously. Yeah. So the American League East is looking competitive. We'll see. It's still early in spring training. It's hard to judge.
As we're talking here, Rick, we got a couple guys banged up. Henderson's. I spent the morning talking about Gunnar Henderson's side and velocity off of Grayson Rodriguez. I mean, I'm doing all of this baseball stuff, but the one thing, I mean, there's a geopolitical thing happening that the Orioles are going to become very aware of on opening day, and me as an American probably as well. But there's just also Anthony Santander, who was the big signing on your side, who was our guy. That's the one thing I've heard as much about as the pitching as I walk the streets here is, hey, how are they going to replace his bat? 40 bombs. And, I mean, the Blue Jays spend money. I'll say that. I mean, they give you and Getty and everybody else that loves the Blue Jays there you've had an entertaining product. They've tried to remain competitive in spending money.
They have. The big thing, of course, is that they went in big on the Latino players for a certain period of time. And now what's happened is when they go and they're chasing some of these guys, they turn the Jays down, And now they haven't been able to re-sign Vladdy yet, and that's a kind of a sort of Damocles dangling over the Jays. So if they can solve that issue, and hey, if Bichette has the kind of year that he can have, because last year he was struggling last year, then they can be a competitive team. And they've done some smart things. I always like the competitiveness of Max Scherzer, and now that they've got him, even if he doesn't necessarily have value, giving you 6 innings of greatness, every time out, he's still a kind of a great influence there for work habits, and like the younger players will look to a guy like that and go, "Oh, look at how hard he works," and he's an old man, So there is that, that they've got those kinds, and they've always done that. They've always gone and brought in way back in the day Molitor and people that were like work ethic guys, and so I like the team for that. But I don't know, you follow sports, so if you don't get any one of 4 or 5 things. If your bullpen's bad, if your starting pitching's bad, if you're not hitting for power, a couple of injuries, like all of these things, any one of them can put you out of competition because you kind of have to have them all to have a full season that really, because it's a grind, man. A lot of games.
We got new ownership here, after just 30 years of just awfulness that I am sort of famous for that and the awfulness of the baseball ownership here. New ownership, it feels like they have enough money to do what they want to do financially. And they have something different this year, which is at the trading deadline, they'll be able to deal. They have deep depth in the organization. And I
Yes.
even said this to Luke. I said, they got to deal Westberg to get a pitcher in his prime because that's the way they're going to get that pitcher. They're not going to get that pitcher by giving Max Fried $230 million. They're going to acquire that pitcher. Right now, they went out and they're renting starting pitching. They signed Sagano from Japan. He's 35 years old. Finds the strike zone. Charlie Morton, we know his story, it's 41 years old. This is what they're going with. But I keep saying July's a different season when you can deal and when you have an owner that says, all right, you need 50 million, here it is, because we can win. And for
Yeah.
that, we've not had that here ever, Rick, ever.
Yes. Well, part of the Baltimore success story, from my perspective, was that they just had so many years of great drafting that they created a depth that now they're able to, turn onto different things using the depth, the homegrown depth that they had. But now it's like, okay, now we can play with the big boys the way the big boys have always played, and you have to do that when you're in a division with Boston and New York. If you can't play on all those levels that you just put, you got to spend money. You have to. There's no other way around it. So anyhow, blah blah blah. Baseball. Let's talk about something else now.
All right, here we go. He's moving us along. Rik Emmett is here, longtime guitarist, musician, teacher, schooling me. All right, so inspiration. Playing a Telecaster. Where and when and how old were you when you first touched your first Telecaster?
Oh, it would have been around 67, 68, and it was the first good electric guitar that I had when I decided, okay, like I wrecked up my knee playing football in high school, and when I was 17 years old, and it was like, okay, this is no longer going to be, the sports and athletics not going to be for me, because the injury was that severe. So then I went, okay, well, music has always been. I sang in the choir and played guitar, and ever since I was a little kid. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give the music thing a full shot. So I got myself a Fender Telecaster and a Fender amp, and I got my union card, and I started playing in like Jewish wedding bands and bar mitzvah bands, and wearing a suit and doing that thing. But the Tele was this guitar that was like, and the cliches, there's millions. I mean, of course, Keith Richards guitar, Bruce Springsteen guitar. So a Tele has been this iconic thing, but it was there right from the beginning with Motown bands, and the guys in the Wrecking Crew all had Teles, and making all those records out in Los Angeles. And it was the guitar that kind of crossed the boundaries. It brought American music of both sort of white pop and black blues and R&B. Like, it was the guitar that made it happen, So very versatile. And then growing up in Toronto, that was the guitar you could afford them before you could afford a Gibson Les Paul, And Les Pauls were much rarer and harder to find. Telly's, my used one I think was $250, so you could afford them on the money that you were making as a pin boy in the bowling alley. And so that was how it all started. And there were just so many things about the Tele. Jazz guys here in Toronto. Ed Bickert was a real sort of role model hero for Canadian guitarists, and he was a Tele guy. Granted, he stuck a humbucking pickup in there, but so did Keith Richards. So anyhow, that was the thing, and it was iconic. And so at a certain point in time, I was asked to. I sort of motivated myself, but I had a guy that does pickups for me, and we started talking about maybe we should custom design a Tele that will combine things that I really love, like shorter scale length. Oh, a Gibson string height off the face. Oh, a couple of these new humbucking pickups that Mike Smitty Smith had. So I go, okay, let's do this. I'm willing to fork out. So we got a guy in a local town, Oakville, Garen Dekessian, and he sort of was the builder. Smitty was my pal, and he kind of curated the thing. But I was there the whole time for about a year and a half, going tweak this. Let me see how the neck feels. No, let's shave this. All blah blah blah. So then we got it going, and that I was writing music at the same time. Those guitar pieces were becoming these things. Then I talked to my editor at ECW Press. I said, listen, I'm thinking instead of just liner notes, I'm thinking about writing a book, like really going into some comprehensive depth about just the guitar and the designing of the guitar, and then the writing of the songs and what are the songs about and all that stuff. So he went, I'm in. That's great. It sounds like a great idea. So it's book, it's 10, songs, it's a guitar, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman.
Rik Emmett is here. He is all of the above as well. I've been sort of geeking out having you on this week. I had John Palumbo from Crack the Sky on because I saw their band 2 weeks ago. You're getting out and playing. My dear friend Gina Schock has put the Go-Go's back together, and she's trying to get in the shape to play. And for all of these rock stars that have lived long enough for me to live long enough to be 56 and grow my hair long and still love your music, I find it fascinating to see the tapestry of all of your lives in your art, in whether Getty's doing a big bass book and you're doing a big Telecaster book, or someone's writing a book about their lives, or they're taking their pictures or stories, which I have your book here. So I want to promote this too, because Lay It on the Line, the last time you came on, this was more like the story of your life. So you write this biography kind of like, all right, I've told you everything I want to tell you about the band and this and that and all that. And then there's like, all right, well, I'm going to pick the guitar up and do something else. What leads you to this project? And more importantly, having some rock star friends that are a little bit older than me, the ability to get back and play on a stage again. I mean, Clapton had made dates this week and stuff. There's just something about when you can play, you should play, and you feel like you must play. And you're playing again a little bit, but it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's like baseball. You put the ball down, you have to pick it back up to be able to play it the way you want to play.
Yeah, but sports and athletics, it's kind of like, let's say as an artist, you decided you wanted to be a dancer. You're going to get into your 30s and you're going to realize, well, I can't compete at the same level anymore. And at a certain point, you're going to turn to choreography. It's just, that's the way it's going to go, right? And when you're a player, and I was a player that played at a certain level. I think if you're a guy like I don't know, and I don't want to, I'm not bad mouthing anybody, but a guy like Neil Young, he's going to be able to keep motoring along at the same level. He's not going to have any, Bob Dylan can kind of still do what he did because he wasn't trying to play virtuosic kinds of things. A player like Getty, a player like me, it becomes harder. Like my pal Steve Morse, he's struggling with arthritis, and I've got some arthritis issues too now. And there's certain things I can do. There's other things that I can't. So you ask me, if I come off a memoir and I'm starting to write this 10 Telecasters thing, why? Part of it is like, well, there's still things that I can do, and I want to do them while I still can. I want to, I want to have the ambition to chase that and see if I can't make it happen. So, it's not necessarily technically, physically, the stuff that I could have done even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's just not. But, finger style things, I can get around. I can do some things. So while I can, and the idea about playing live, Nestor, that it's like, okay, all my career, the proof of the pudding was that you took it out live and you played it. And then that was what made this passive income kind of stuff, the music you wrote, the records you made, like it wasn't real until people saw you in the flesh and you came to town and you did their thing. That was the selling of the tickets was also the thing that made everybody else believers. Record companies will go, okay, yeah, of course, that's what you got to do. You got to tour. And every interview I ever do, so you coming to our town, you're gonna come play. It's the proof of the pudding, right? On all levels. So, I don't want to go on tour again. I don't want to have to do the planes, trains, automobiles, hotels, like it's just, that's too much of a grind for a guy in his 70s that's, gone a one round with cancer and a couple of rounds with arthritis now. And I go, okay, that's not in the cards. But what if I go and I play a couple of little live dates and small theater kind of thing? What if I go and do in the same way that you and I are having this conversation? What if I go and I do a thing where a podcaster guy interviews me live and I got a guitar handy and I added a few things? Like, would people buy tickets to come and see that? Yes, apparently they would, because I've set up 3 of these things in the next month, and one of them, in a theater, 2 nights sold out in like 24 hours. Boom, So I go, okay, well, there's a hunger for it, you know. I'm not sure how hungry I am, but we're going to find out, Yeah. So that's really what's going on there. And I'm going to say this too. I mean, part of it is there's things you want to try to prove to yourself. I go, well, yes, I retired, but late next month, my wife and I are going to go on a trip. We're going to Paris for springtime, and then we're going to go up to Amsterdam, and we're going to take a river cruise with some pals all the way down to Switzerland. We're going to take our time. We're going to have a thing. And I think I'm going to be able to handle that, like that's a kind of a touring thing that I can handle where I won't have the pressure of any gigs at night. But before I do that, I thought I'm going to try to sneak in a few gigs. And then after I have the big trip, when I come back, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to, take stock of my whole life again. And I'm going to say, okay, where do I go from here? Because this has been a flurry of activity in the last little while for sure. And, we'll see where I stand come, middle of May, third week of May, kind of.
All right. So as we tape this with Rik Emmett, live at Black Bellows Parlor, Collingwood on March 21st. So you're doing a little bit of a combination. You're doing an online thing as well as a sold out ticketed thing in theaters. What does it take for you to pick the guitar back up and create a little mini set for a little mini thing, not putting together a tour in any way, but to come together with what you want to play in front of people at this point?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the Collingwood thing, that'll be relatively easy because half of it is Yak Yak, and the 2 shows that are April 10 and 11 at the Redwood Theater in Toronto, those are, I'm intending to come out and first set solo play all of the 10 Telecaster tales and then have a break, see if, get some oxygen, whatever. And then come back out, and my old pal Dave Dunlop's going to join me in the second set, and we're going to do some stuff that's a little more comfortable, sneak in a couple of old Triumph things, like it'll be more like what I used to do. So there is a psychic kind of pressure that exists if you're going to go out and do, 10 pieces of repertoire that you've never done live before. That's like, okay, getting naked and walking out on the high wire. And what does it take? It takes, I rehearse a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon or in the evening, so that I'm getting in at least 4 or 5 hours a day now to try to make sure that just that I got the stuff in my brain, that I got the stuff in my hands, and you're trying to create a motor memory. And that's because I am kind of conscientious. Now, having said all that, at the age of 71, there's still a real element of it's high wire and there's no net. Like it could it could come off the rails any second. And that's another thing I think that's why people buy tickets to see people live too. They kind of go, there's more danger in this. And to quote a famous artist, David Bowie, he would say, art has to be when you go into the water and you go until your feet aren't touching bottom anymore, and you're a little uncomfortable and it's a little bit dangerous, and you're not sure what's going to happen. And so I think as an artist, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. That's not to say that I don't prep. I do, like there's a reason why you practice and rehearse, but that live thing has a danger that's just, it's addictive, and it's been a part of my life ever since, so yeah.
Rick, back in the day, we used to laugh around the newspaper when I had older editors, and I would call your Allied Forces or seven, whatever your next album was, your project, and you're just making an album. It was come on, you're making some music. It wasn't a project. This feels like a project, right? This is a book, sort of made of liner notes of music. This is like the whole. It's like a 3D thing, maybe from back in the 80s where there would have been a book to accompany it. Sometimes Neil Peart wrote us a little liner note book, and I know artists used to like to write a lot of things in there, but this is a little bit of a combination. I've listened to the music. You can click on buttons up at Rik Emmett's website, which you can find at rikemmett.com, and click and listen to some music. It's beautiful guitar music, right? And I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, what bang would it be in the prog rock, the new age? What would you call this? Jazz? I guess it's a little bit of everything, but it's beautiful Telecaster music, and not unlike I don't know, the first 10 chords of Lay It on the Line, the sound of that at least.
Yeah. That's for sure. It's what I used to be. It's what I am now. It's kind of what I hope to be. So, and as music goes, there's a lot of R&B in the bottom layer of it, because I was a blues guy when I got my first telly, when I played in basement bands, and we were learning Led Zeppelin licks, but we were also learning, the Nazar Blue by the Yardbirds, and we were learning how to play, I don't know, John Lee Hooker tunes and Charlie Musselwhite, and like Born in Chicago, and so there's a kind of a bluesiness in what I'm doing, but it's solo fingerstyle guitar, so it's going to end up. There's going to be moments where you're going, geez, that sounds like it's jazz, or there's going to be moments where you go, oh, that sounds kind of flamenco. This kind of sounds like Lenny Bro a little bit. And as I've been doing interviews, people are going, geez, you know what it reminds me? And they'll say, and I'll go, yeah, there's some of that, and like I've always loved Pat Metheny, so there's a little bit of influence from that direction, although not at Pat's level. I mean, to me, he's like, Rik Emmett's sort of down around here in your guts, and Pat Metheny's sort of up here in heaven. Anyhow, so that's what it's all about. Now, I'm going to go back to something you said about projects. Look, you were clearly never in a band like Triumph, because if you were, you would know that an album was definitely a project.
Artwork, everything, right?
Oh, how are you going to get the three guys to agree to get together and do pre-production and do all the writing? And like, it was like going to the dentist for a root canal, before you even got into the studio. And then when you finally did, it was like, oh God, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to find enough material? Because of course we were a touring entity, and just to find the window to be recording, then we would never have enough material, and we would be desperate to be coming up with ideas. And every time, like not just the first few albums, but every time it was like, Oh man.
But
And
hold
then
on,
of
you also
course,
made albums too many too quickly and didn't have the expectation of you to tour 11 months a year and put an album out every year. Really weird, right? As I look back on
exactly.
it.
And every band of that era complains about that it was ridiculous. And of course, eventually we sued RCA because they were suspending our contract for every calendar day that went by. They were adding 2 days to the length of the contract for non-delivery of albums because we were out touring and we were trying to sell the one we'd already put out and we were having success. And oh, should we go to Europe? Oh, should we go to Japan? Oh, should we go to Australia? And those things, they eat up huge chunks of the calendar. And now here's your record company going, well, that's okay, boys. You can deliver late, but meanwhile, legally, they're postponing your life. And so we sued them, and then we lost the lawsuit. And so
It's
every
all in the book.
album,
It's in the book. It's in Lay It On the Line, right? It is, right?
it is, and so every album was a project, my friend.
Well, in the end, though, as someone who had to say, what is it? I could say it's an album, new album, new Triumph albums out. I don't know what to call this. This is a project. Like, this is a bookend. It's a combination, I guess, in a modern way. And that's kind of cool. 10 Telecaster Tales with Rik Emmett, baseball fan, Canadian extraordinaire, and getting out and plucking and playing. And you can click right now and listen to the music. You can get on the Zoom as well. And when are you coming to Annapolis and playing Rams Head, Rick? I mean, I have to ask that question, right? That's
Hey, you know what?
obligatory.
I tell you this: of all the places that I would maybe go, that was always a great place to play. Loved that venue. Loved the just the feel of it. It was a nice place to play. And there's videos on YouTube you can find of moments at the Rams Head. I still have a T-shirt somewhere, a Rams Head T-shirt. You know, but I honestly, and not to end on a down note, but because of all of the BS that's going on now between America and Canada, and just the guy that you guys decided to elect as president.
Not me.
Yes,
Stop. I gotta see. I'm worried coming across the border. I am for the first time in my life. I'm worried that you may have said, "Nah, I'm boycotting Nestor's show. He's in America." It's like I love you and your people.
no.
This is going to break my heart
Wear
because
that hat, buddy. Just make sure you're wearing that hat because there are going to be people that are walking around now, like Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live was talking about elbows up, like Gordie Howe. We're going to be defensive now because
it's so wrong, Rick. I
you're,
apologize on behalf of all of us. It's
the
so wrong.
Republicans in your country are offensive people, and they're being offensive to the rest of the world. So, I love the fact that there are Americans that don't agree with that, but we are going to be defensive. And yes, your Orioles are going to get a little bit of that. They might hear some booing of your national anthem and stuff. Um, it's not that I don't love what America stands for. The greatest part of my career happened because of the support of Americans. They're still the largest amount of fans that I have. But whatever happened to the America of Lady Liberty? Whatever happened to the America that had an open mind and an open heart and open arms? Like, come on, like that. That's a thing that's in. It's gone now, and it's something to regret. So I'm just telling you, if somebody's got their elbows up, you just have to go, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Wear a little maple leaf over your heart, you'll be fine.
I have never met a Canadian, and I've traveled all over the world, who did not have a maple leaf on the outside of their bag as a subtle message to anyone anywhere else. I'm with
Yes.
I'm with them, not them. And this is the
Yeah.
team I'm on. And I always found that to be really neat when I was a kid in Australia when I'm 29 and there's a bunch of young girls and they all have Canadian and I'm talking to them about they're from Manitoba, wherever they're from. And then the rest of my life, I've just all wherever I am in the Caribbean, wherever you are, Canadians wear that they're Canadian, and this is why. And at this particular point, I I would give you the whole floor and say I'm with you. Believe me,
Yeah.
I sit here, we fight it all day long, friendships, all the things you know and read about on your side, on behalf of my parents who fought against what that is. It's shameful, and I humbly come into your country, even though I'm not the most humble American, but you know that. But I try not to be the ugly American, Rick. You know what I'm saying? Now
Well said.
we know what
Well
that is.
said.
Rik Emmett is here. You love his music. I love his music. I think he's a great guy, even though he roots for the wrong baseball team. But we'll sort that out on the field, and I hope to get you back here when get democracy back, so you can come to Rams Head, eat a proper crab cake with me, and play the music that you love to play. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the magic, power, and the music all these years and all that good stuff. Buy the book. It doesn't have the happiest ending. I guess it does because you're all alive and well, so it is a happy ending,
Show the
right?
other one. Show the other one. Show the other
I don't
one.
have the other one in front of me. I can pull it up online.
Oh,
10
okay.
Telecaster Tales. I'm telling them just to go online. They're
Okay.
watching this on the internet. All you have to do is click
Man,
on it.
I'm going to clip the wings of my PR girl. She should have made sure that you had one of those books. Oh, that's
Trump
terrible.
wouldn't let it into the country, so probably, right? There you go. I'm not going to blame that on you. I'm with my love for Claire and ECW Press. Rick, thanks very much. Happy opening day to you. And one
Okay,
day,
Nestor.
man, one day, a beer and a ball game or something like that. But get ready for these gigs, and it's just great to see you. You look young, you look healthy, and that's the most important.
Thanks, man. All right. Thanks,
Rik
Nestor.
Emmett of the great
Take
band
care, man.
Triumph joining us here. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore positive.